Sent away in shame. Bound by silence. Two souls, worlds apart, destined to ignite a fire that would burn down old chains and build a new world from the ashes. This is their story, a story of exile, courage, and a love that defied everything. If you're ready to hear a story that will touch your heart and inspire your soul, hit that subscribe button now and join us on this unforgettable journey. The wind howled as the carriage creaked to a stop, its wheels half sunken in the mud of the moorlands. Elira Whitlow did not wait for the driver to open the door. She stepped down herself, the hem of her once elegant gown soaking instantly in the freezing slush. There was no welcoming party, no servant with a lantern, only the looming silhouette of a forgotten estate, half swallowed by fog and thorny ivy. The estate had no name. It had been scrubbed from maps, like she had been scrubbed from society. Her offense? Something as vague as it was damning: dishonor. The kind whispered about in corridors, never spoken aloud. A cousin's jealous lie, a father's need to save face. Whatever the truth, Elira was now an exile. She knocked once. No answer. When she pushed the door, it moaned open. Inside stood Dael. He did not bow. He did not speak. He simply nodded toward the stairs. A tall, lean man with skin weathered by sun and silence. His eyes, dark and still, met hers only once before he turned back into the shadowed corridor. That first night, the cold was unbearable. Elira lay awake on a straw mattress, wrapped in a cloak that smelled of smoke and lavender. The walls seemed to breathe with old secrets. Somewhere downstairs, Dael chopped wood. The rhythm of the axe was the only sound in the silence. Days passed in near total quiet. Dael brought meals to her door, but said nothing. Elira, furious at first, tried to provoke him, slamming doors, spilling broth, even crying loudly. He never reacted. Not cruel, not kind. Just present. Until the fever came. She awoke one morning dizzy, trembling. Her skin burned, but her body shivered. The room spun. She collapsed halfway down the stairs. The last thing she saw was Dael kneeling beside her. When she woke again, it was night. A fire crackled. Wet cloth cooled her forehead. A warm spoon touched her lips. Someone whispered, "Easy now." For 3 days, she drifted in and out. And each time, Dael was there. Reading softly from old books. Changing her cloths. Feeding her sips of herbal tea. His voice, deeper than she'd imagined, became a lifeline. On the 4th day, she opened her eyes fully. Dael sat across the room, carving a small wooden figure. A fox. "Why?" she rasped. He looked up. Because no one else would. Elira stared at him. For the first time, she did not see a servant, or a threat, or a ghost of the past. She saw a man. And she realized with quiet devastation, no one had cared for her this way before. Not in the court. Not in her family. Only here, in exile, with a man who owed her nothing. She pulled the blanket tighter around her, not from cold, but from the ache growing in her chest. Outside, snow fell soundlessly. But inside, something had begun to stir. The snow melted slowly, revealing the bruised earth beneath. Winter was not over, but the wind had softened. Inside the old estate, time seemed suspended. Elira had recovered, yet a fragile quiet hung in the air, not cold this time, but filled with unspoken things. One evening, as Dael stoked the hearth, sparks leapt higher than usual. A log, improperly placed, rolled out and ignited a fur rug. The flames moved quickly, hungry from years of dust and dry wood. Elira screamed for water. Dael lunged forward with a cloth, beating down the fire. But the chaos had spread. Sparks kissed the tapestries. Curtains bloomed into flames. The room turned to smoke. Elira rushed upstairs, not for herself, but for a carved box beneath her bed. Her mother's letters. The only pieces of warmth left from her childhood. She found the box. But as she turned to flee, a beam crashed down. She was trapped. She coughed violently, eyes stinging. The box pressed to her chest like a shield. Heat blistered the walls. She whispered Dael's name once, then again louder. A shadow cut through the smoke. Strong arms lifted the beam. Dael. His face was burned, jaw clenched. He scooped her up like a child and carried her through the crackling hallway. The ceiling groaned behind them. They burst into the night air, falling to the snowbank. Elira gasped as if breathing for the first time. Dael collapsed beside her, clutching his hands. The skin on his palms was red and raw. She turned to him. "Your hands are nothing," he muttered, his voice hoarse. "You're safe." The estate smoldered behind them. The upper floor was gone. Half the roof had caved. They slept that night in the stable, surrounded by silence and the breath of frightened animals. Elira bandaged his hands, trembling. She couldn't stop touching his face, as if afraid he might vanish. In the days that followed, they worked side by side, salvaging what little remained. Charred wood, cracked dishes, damp books. Among the ruins, Elira found the carved box, scorched but intact. And inside, one letter she'd never read. The seal was her mother's. Lady Seraphine. With shaking fingers, she opened it. It was a farewell. A confession. Her mother wrote of a man, brave, selfless, unthanked, who had saved their lives when ambushed during a journey through the southern glades. The man had refused reward. Weeks later, he had vanished. Whispers said the Marquis had him taken in chains, fearful of being outshone by a freedman. His name, her mother wrote, was Dael. Elira dropped the letter. The world tilted. The smoke in her chest now had a name, injustice. She ran to Dael in the barn, clutching the parchment. "You saved them. You saved us. And he, my father, he." Dael looked at her, his gaze steady. "Some truths burn longer than fire," he said quietly. She wept then. Not because the house was gone, but because everything she thought she knew had just crumbled into ash. And still, Dael stood. Not as a shadow. Not as a servant. But as the man who had always seen her, even when she had not yet seen him. Spring arrived slowly, brushing the scorched earth with tentative green. The remnants of winter's harsh bite still lingered in the brittle branches and cold morning mist, but new life was stirring beneath the ruin. Elira woke one morning to the faint scent of earth and fresh rain. The stable where they had sheltered through the fire was now home to tiny shoots pushing through the ash. She stepped outside, bare feet sinking softly into the muddy ground, heart lifted by the fragile promise of rebirth. Beside her, Dael knelt, planting seeds with patient hands, turning the soil with a reverence she had never seen in a noble's court. They worked side by side in silence at first, hands occasionally brushing, shy glances exchanged like secret words. Days blended into weeks. Together, they rebuilt what they could, patching walls with salvaged wood, tending the surviving animals, coaxing the garden back to life. The estate, once a prison of isolation and cold stone, began to breathe again, warmed by the quiet rhythms of shared labor. One afternoon, as Elira pulled weeds near the orchard, she found the letter from her mother crumpled in her pocket, the edges worn from constant touch. Summoning courage, she approached Dael in the barn, where he carved a small wooden bird. She unfolded the letter and spoke softly, "You saved them. You saved my family. Why did you stay silent all this time?" Dael's hands paused, the knife hovering over the wood. His eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. "Because what matters," he said, "is what we do now, not what was done then." Elira's breath caught. The weight of the past was heavy, but here in this moment, there was something new, a chance to rewrite their story. But the fragile piece was fragile indeed. Word of her exile, her absence, and her growing closeness to Dael spread beyond the valley. A visiting huntsman, sharp-eyed and whispered about in the capital, saw them working together. Rumors stirred like smoke on the wind, carried swiftly through the court and the town alike. Elira knew that soon, the walls of this refuge would crumble again, not from fire, but from those unwilling to accept what they could not control. One evening, under the blossoming branches of an ancient tree, she kissed Dael, not in defiance, but as an oath, a seed planted in the soil of their shared freedom. Their lips met in quiet understanding. Whatever storms came, this was their root. Their beginning. The sun had barely risen when the soldiers came. Their boots thundered against the stone path, tearing through the fragile calm that Elira and Dael had tried so hard to build. The village whispered behind shuttered windows as the guards stormed the valley, their orders clear: bring the exile back to the seat of power. Elira stood on the threshold of their humble home, hands clenched, heart pounding. Dael's quiet strength was a shield at her side, but even his calm could not dispel the storm gathering beyond the gates. They were seized, Elira roughly pulled from the garden where new life bloomed, Dael shackled with cruel iron bands, his face bruised from a prior beating no one had witnessed. The journey back to Whitlow Estate was a slow march through jeering crowds and silent scorn. Elira's dress, once fine but now tattered, bore the marks of struggle, her eyes burned with defiance. The weight of centuries pressed upon her, the legacy of nobility, the chains of expectations, yet she stood tall, unbowed. The tribunal was nothing more than a makeshift court in the grand hall, echoes of former glory clashing with the raw tension in the air. Her father, the Marquis, loomed at the head of the table, his face thunderous with betrayal and rage. Around him sat lords and ladies, their eyes sharp, their whispers venomous. "Daughter," the Marquis's voice thundered, "you have shamed us all. Your disgrace stains our name. How do you plead to these charges of dishonor and treason?" Elira's gaze swept the room, meeting cold, judging eyes. She drew in a breath and stepped forward. "I do not carry your shame," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I carry my freedom." A murmur rippled through the court. "He did not steal me," she continued, "he healed me." Gasps echoed. The Marquis slammed his fist on the table. "You would dare speak so of Dael? That man is your servant, your property by law." "No," Elira declared, voice rising. "He is not my servant. He is my equal. My heart. My truth." She turned her eyes to the room, defiantly. "I renounce this name. I renounce these walls. I will not trade truth for comfort." A stunned silence filled the hall. The power balance shifted palpably. The Marquis's face paled, his anger breaking into a furious tremor. He staggered back, clutching his chest, collapsing in defeat. Dael, battered but unbroken, rose slowly. Blood and bruises marked him, but his posture was regal, not by title, but by courage and dignity. The court descended into chaos. Some shouted, others fled, but one thing was certain: Elira's words had ignited a fire no tyranny could smother. In that moment, the old world crumbled, and a new one began. Years had passed since the tribunal, since the fire, since exile and chains. The Whitlow estate was no more, replaced by a modest farmhouse nestled in a quiet valley where the river sang its gentle song and wildflowers carpeted the hillsides. Elira and Dael had built this life from ashes and dreams. Here, no titles ruled, no whispered judgments chased the wind. They were simply two souls, bound by love and truth. Morning light poured through the window, warming wooden floors worn smooth by footsteps of children. Their laughter echoed like music, bright, free, unburdened. Elira stood in the garden, hands deep in the rich earth. Beside her, Dael tended to rows of vegetables and herbs, the sweat on his brow a testament to years of honest labor. Their children ran between them, their skin a beautiful blend of their parents' legacy, untouched by the poison of prejudice. Travelers occasionally arrived, drawn by the whispered tales of the valley where kindness grew wild. They came broken, lost, or weary. And when they left, it was with hearts lighter, eyes clearer, hope rekindled. Inside, the walls were decorated not with grand portraits or coats of arms, but with drawings, sketched by the children, by visitors, by anyone who had found refuge here. Names were chosen freely, spoken aloud with pride and love. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Elira and Dael sat on the porch, hands intertwined, watching the stars emerge like scattered diamonds. "Do you think they will ever understand?" Elira asked softly. Dael smiled, eyes reflecting the constellations. "Perhaps not," he said, "but they don't need to. We have made our own world, a garden of names, rooted in truth and love." Elira leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Their journey had been marked by exile, fire, and judgment, but it ended in something rare and precious: freedom. Not just for themselves, but for every soul who would find shelter beneath the wide sky of their love. And in that garden, their story would grow, quietly, fiercely, and eternally. In a world that tried to break them, they chose tenderness over vengeance, truth over silence, and love over legacy. Their courage lit a path through darkness, proving that even the deepest wounds can bloom into freedom. This isn't just a story about exile or forbidden love, it's a testament to the power of hope and the strength of the human spirit. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales where courage whispers louder than fear. Together, let's keep hope alive.